All right, welcome back to math. Today, module 4, lesson 29. We're going to connect division of a unit fraction with the concept of tenths and hundredths, aka decimals. Let's do a little warm up. All right, I have one thing, I'm going to divide it into tenths. As you can see, I had my one thing and I cut it up into 10 pieces, right? So how many pieces do I have? I have 10, right? Maybe you're going, wow, that's a little weird, Mr. McGuire. How else could we talk about it? Oh, let's talk about it in a different way. If you notice, I changed my color. I made it green like money. If I have $1 and I'm going to divide it into point ones, what would this point ones be? I would hope that you're saying this is the same as 1 divided by 1/10, right? Well, what would this be in money? We would exchange this for what? Dimes. So if I said I have my $1, I'm going to divide it into dimes. How many dimes am I going to get? You would say I'm going to get 10 dimes. Because in $1 there's 10 dimes, right? So 1 divided by 1/10 would be 10. Does that make sense? All right, let me change this on you just slightly. Okay, I changed it slightly. I have $1 and I'm going to turn it into, hey, what's this? The dimes were in this one right here, right? This was the dimes. What would happen if I exchanged it for pennies? What would it be in pennies? How many pennies? This would be 1 divided by 1 over what? Well, we know that our decimal, first place is tenths, and this is what? Yes, that's right, hundredths. So there's 100, right? That's pennies, isn't it? That would be like 1 cent. Question, if I exchanged my $1 for pennies, how many pennies am I going to end up with? Good job. You guys said 100. Excellent work. I would end up with 100 pennies. All right, does that help make some sense of this? All right. I'm going to change our number slightly. Okay, I changed my problem. I have 7 this time, and I'm going to divide it, or I'm going to exchange my $7 for pennies, or 1/100th. How many am I going to end up with? Good job. You guys were so fast. You said 700. You were correct. And our answer here would be 700. Wow, that's wild, isn't it? So we have our dollar, we're going to exchange it for pennies, we're going to end up with 100 pennies. If we have $7 and we exchange it for pennies, we're going to get 700 pennies. And this is the way of writing it as a fraction. Now I've taken off the other parts and I said, okay, I have $7 and I'm going to turn them into dimes. Okay, I've got 7 here, I'm going to divide it by 1/10. So if I'm dividing by 10th, how much am I going to end up with? I'm going to end up with 70. Okay, now let's try doing one of our problems from our... Okay, so we have 3.6 divided by 0.1. 3.6 divided by 0.1, which would be the same as 3.6 divided by 1/10, right? So let's take it apart. If there are, how many tenths in 3 wholes? Let's just talk about this. Let's talk about the 3 right here. There are 3 wholes, right? And how many tens are, if we exchanged our $3 for dimes, okay, how many would we get? Well, we get 10 dimes in $1, so we would get 30 tens in 3 holes, right? And there are how many tenths in 6 tenths? Well, that's pretty easy. There's 6 tenths. So there are how many tenths in 3.6? 30 and 6 would make it 36 tenths in 3.6. There'd be 36 tenths. See how we got that 36? Okay. Let's take a look at $12.80. Or is this dimes or pennies? Right, it's dimes. And remember, there's 10 dimes for every hole, right? So there are how many tenths in 12 holes? Wow. I hope you said that's 120. Remember, we would get 10 for each hole. So when we have 2, we're going to end up with 20. When we have 12, we're going to get 120. All right, how many in 8 tenths? Well, I hope you said 8. So how many do we get for, how many tenths are there in 12.8? 128 tenths, okay? So that means we have 128 dimes. 3 divided by 0.01. What are we talking about here? We're talking about pennies, right? So how many pennies are in 1? 1 would equal 100 pennies, that's right. 100 cents, 100 pennies. So how many do you think there are in 3? Okay, so it says there are how many hundredths in 1 hole? We're going to say there's 100 pennies in $1, right? 100 pennies in $1. So there are how many pennies in $3? We would say 300. There are 300 pennies in $3 or 3 holes. We're exchanging. So we're exchanging our $3 for pennies in this case. Up on top here, we're exchanging our $3 for dimes. Down here, we have $7, and we're going to exchange it for what again? We're exchanging it for, pennies. So there are how many pennies or how many hundredths in 1? There are 100 pennies in $1 or 100 hundredths in 1. Because remember a long time ago we said 100 hundredths equal 1. And then there are how many hundredths in 7 holes? Good job, you said 700. Nice work. In this, they're going to take away some of our help. 7.2 divided by 0.1. What is our 0.1 here? Are we going to exchange it for what? We're exchanging it for dimes, aren't we? If we had $7, how many dimes would we end up with? We would end up with 70 dimes for our $7, right? And how many dimes would we end up with? 2. You're right. That's obvious, isn't it? 2. So we could add these together and we could get 72. And that would be our answer. We get 72 dimes out of $7 and 2 dimes. This looks like a big giant one, doesn't it? We have 231 divided by 0.1, which would equal 231 divided by 1/10. That we're talking about dimes, right? These are dimes. Okay, so how many dimes do we have total? I hope you're saying, by following what we've done, that we're getting 2,310 dimes for $231. And you would be right. Nice work. What about 24.5 divided by 0.01? What about this one? What are we talking about? Are we talking about dimes? No, we're talking about pennies, aren't we? Yeah. Okay, so how many pennies, what do you want to start with here? We can start with either side. We can say, okay, how many pennies are in, what's this? 5 dimes, right? So we would have how many? We'd have 50 pennies for our 5, right? How many pennies would we have in $4? Good job. You said 400. Nice work. And how many pennies would we have in $20? Well, we would have 2,000 pennies. And we can add these all together. 0, 5, 4, 2. So how many pennies did we end up with? We ended up with 2,450 pennies, or hundredths. It says Geraldine solved the problem. 68.5 divided by 0.01. Question, we're exchanging it for what? What are we exchanging this for? Is this dimes or pennies? Yeah, pennies, right? So how many pennies are in 50 cents? Well, it'd be 50, right? How many pennies are in $8? Good job, you guys. You're getting this. 800, nice work. How many pennies are in $60? 6,000. 6,000. So we can add these together. And we have 6,850, 6,850 pennies in $68.50, right? But it says up here that Ralph, the reason why I went ahead and did this problem together, I wanted to see if she was right. She was right. But Ralph said that it's wrong. You can't get, this number can't be bigger than this one. That quotient can't be greater than the whole you start with. He's saying this can't be. This is too big. You can't get a bigger number here than you have here. For example, 8 divided by 2 equals 4. We all know that, right? 250 divided by 5 is 50, right? So this is bigger than that. This one's bigger than that. Who's correct? Well, is Ralph correct? No, he's not. How come? What we did is we took $68.50 and we exchanged it for pennies at the bank. So how many pennies did we end up with? We ended up with 6,850 pennies, right? Or hundredths. So you can get a bigger number back here, can't you? Yes, you can. Especially when we're exchanging things. When we're exchanging dollars for pennies, right? All right, I hope that this was helpful to you. I love math.